Om Shri Sai Ram. Giving all praise and honor to God, for truly it is He that speaks through me, through all of us, as a matter of fact, through the course of this YA panel, as you will all soon come to see. Very humble pranams and a very loving Sai Ram to one and all of you. Sai Ram. Sorry, I think my hearing is to go to a hearing doctor. I think I heard that Sai Ram. All right, we'll work with that. Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend Doctor, as he was affectionately referred to as, when asked throughout his noble endeavor to aid this country in realizing social equality about why he chose nonviolence as the medium through which to conduct his business and affairs, had often stated the following, time and time again. The aftermath of nonviolence is the creation of the beloved community, while the aftermath of violence is nothing but tragic bitterness. A beloved community. Kill the enmity, not the enemy, says Bhagavan time and time again, and I cannot help but see that reflected throughout the course of this topic, being ahimsa. The panel today has decided to embark upon an auspicious task. For among the 5 main values that Bhagavan insisted we instill in ourselves, ahimsa, I found, as well as others I am sure, has often been relegated to the sidelines of satsangs in various discussion circles. Why, you may ask? Well, I don't really know, but some people have found the case that ahimsa, at face value, may not necessarily have the depth that dharma has, the nobility that satya has, the necessity that shanti has, or the effervescence that we ascribe prema to have. Oftentimes it is taken for granted, as unlike the other 4, nonviolence seems to rationally explain itself. There is violence. Don't do violence. That is ahimsa. There is himsa, ahimsa. So thus, the choosing or the willingness to not engage in violence is thus what we consider ahimsa to be. Thinking thus, it becomes almost casually used as a self-explanatory term. Beta, don't hit other kids on the playground. Why not, Papa? Ahimsa. Or some people, throughout their spiritual sojourn, may take it one step further. Beta, don't put on the TV so loudly. I'm trying to nap. Why, Papa, I can't hear? Ahimsa. And thus they proceed to try to fall asleep or do whatever they wish to do. Now, obviously, these are apt examples because himsa is being caused by either hating other children or loudly putting on the TV. But that is only a subset of what ahimsa truly is. This panel today will dive deeper into this concept, for it is a multi-dimensional concept, and each element of it should be incorporated and imbibed into our internal dogma. For to do so is to be a more benevolent and beloved being, which thus allows us, as the Reverend Doctor time and time again had stated, that we should become more beloved and a benevolent society.
And so as we watched Swami speak and as we reflected upon his words, we always knew that nonviolence is a super powerful tool that we should be using in our day-to-day lives when it comes to resolving conflict. And advocates of nonviolence believe in dialogue and negotiation and peaceful means to address discussions and differences and disputes, but with a way to foster understanding and reconciliation. And our Vedanta, our Hindu Vedanta, underscores the sacredness of life, that practitioners are urged to see the divine presence in all living beings, and this recognition forms the basis for practicing nonviolence. This perspective aligns with the broader concept of Vasudeva Kudambakam, which means the world is one family. So we wanted to use this as the basis of diving into a few of the questions that we developed once we had watched Swami give this discourse and as we started to converse with each other. The first question that we all came up with was, often we don't intend to hurt anyone, but without our knowledge, our actions would have hurt someone, and we come to know of this later on. So we wanted to share a few of our experiences and thoughts in these situations.
Sarah, I can start sharing on this topic. Um, so I feel like violence is something that we commit a lot unknowingly because violence is present in our thoughts, words, and our deeds. And sometimes you unintentionally hurt someone with your actions or just think something and you're like, oh man, this person, this, and you don't even truly realize the violence that you've committed. So one prayer I would like to share with you all that I do is this prayer I heard in satsang when I was very young, and it goes like this. So it has 5 simple components. You say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. So this prayer, whenever I unintentionally hurt someone, and I realize it after I hurt them, or just like when walking around, I always say this prayer and kind of spread that love, kindness, forgiveness, and gratitude to just everyone I meet. And if you hurt someone and you can't immediately reconcile with them, I deeply pray and send this prayer. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I say that to them, and hopefully when we meet again, I can truly express my feelings. So I feel like kind of spreading this love, kindness, and gratitude wherever you go can help you prevent that violence.
Adding on to that, a prayer that Swami has given us is the prayer of Karacharanatamma, like very like shortening it a lot. Basically the translation of that is, O Lord, the tasks of this day, whose burden I placed on you this morning, are over. It was you who made me walk, talk, think, and act. I therefore place at thy feet all my words, thoughts, and deeds. My task is done. Receive me. I'm coming back to you. So therefore, if we say this prayer every morning and every night, we are basically just offering all our deeds or even thoughts of the day to Swami. So if we do that, and even if we unintentionally hurt someone, it is the hope that, since we are offering the day's deeds to Swami, that he will guide us and show us that, okay, if we did a wrongdoing, there's probably a good reason behind that wrongdoing, and maybe it's for our own spiritual growth, and so that we can learn from that mistake and commit that less.
It was very apt sharings, and I think that ultimately just being cognizant of our actions and our thoughts and the way in which we comport ourselves in day-to-day lives is something that's just so important in basically ensuring that you don't have anything accumulated negatively and you only spread that kind of positivity. It reminds me of an incident, just on the concept of ripple effect and the great ways in which even small actions of kindness can go about incurring large amounts of benefit. There was a story from a book called The Chicken Soup for the Soul, in which an individual was walking back from class one day when he notices a classmate in front of him who had dropped his books scattered all around the ground, and he's frantically trying to put it all back into his bag. So that individual, though he was running a little bit late, decided that it would probably be better to help out that individual, because, why not? He went there and did the simple act of trying to put his books and help him put his books in his bag. Conversation thus ensured from there onwards. They realized they had a lot in common, and thus a friendship fostered and beautifully blossomed. That other individual went on to graduate school, graduate college, start a family of his own, and after which he came back to that first individual and said that the day in which we first met, the day that I had dropped my books, I was running from class to my house because I wanted to take my life. My locker was filled with books. I wanted to clear out those books so as to ensure that no one else had the burden of cleaning up my space. And I was so committed and resolved to go about this course of action. But it was because of your kindness to take some time out of your day to help me with cleaning up books that had fallen onto the ground from my bag, that it ensured that not only had you saved my life, but through the work that I do and through the family that I've raised, I've been able to spread goodness. And I think that is just such a beautiful analogy of the quote-unquote butterfly effect and the way that all goes about. So being aware of our actions, that is the most important thing. I know that towards the end of the clip, Bhagwan had talked about awareness and how we have to have that total understanding of our actions. But how to develop that? That is something that I find, the goal itself is very nice, but the path, the means through which to do it, it would be nice if we got some insight from our fellow brothers and sisters in that regard. How would we go about becoming more aware?
I also am on the same path, so I don't know if I can provide answers as much as just thoughts, but my experience with nonviolence is similar to, as you mentioned. You tend to think it's kind of the most straightforward of the 5 values. You think, like, okay, love, that's tough, peace, okay, what does that mean? Truth, all this. Nonviolence, okay, at least I can put a tick mark next to that, right? But then, as I started to realize, it's not just, as you said, doing harm unto others. It's also the little ways in which the actions we take have effects on other people. For instance, I take great pride in not hurting people. I think I'm a kind guy, but if I'm a little careless about something, or a little late, or something like that, I'm affecting someone else's day or their time. And so, I think what it comes down to, at least for what you mentioned, is I thought about kind of short-term versus long-term pleasure and pain, and as far as the pathway for realizing this nonviolence, it can be tough to change one's own habits. And as we're saying, if nonviolence is not just an action, but also in thought and emotion, then that's even more layers of things to work on. But perhaps it comes down to some deferring, short-term pleasure and satisfaction for long-term fulfillment. For instance, if I am, kind of late to work, say, and I can't get out of bed. This is a very hypothetical example and not at all a real example. It may feel on the surface that I'm not doing harm, or I don't have a meeting, nobody's looking for something today, but ultimately, and this kind of ties into Dharma, but ultimately, my actions are going to affect somebody else or something else or the team in some form or fashion, whether immediately or long term. And if I can learn to look outside of myself in that short-term moment, then I can learn to do right by myself and other people in the longer term. That's just my thoughts.
I think that's a wonderful example of something that we can all do in, our short-term goals is to prioritize our habits. Because then I think we all become a little bit more aware of the depth of that value and how much it carries in our day-to-day lives. And so when we talk about putting this in our short term and making this a goal to prioritize, how do we distinguish that fine line of disciplining ourselves to make good decisions without being too harsh on ourselves? Because in the beginning of this discourse clip, Swami also said it's not just about not hurting other people, but it's also about not hurting yourself, because when you cause pain to yourself, you're inevitably causing pain to other people. So how do we address this and encourage ourselves to be better and form that discipline without being too harsh? Any of our brothers and sisters?
Swami has really gave us the tool already. Whenever we want to actually cross this fine line, we might think, is there any love involved here or not? So basically, it's the path of controlling the mind to be non-violence. It's a very difficult path. As much as you try to control the mind, really you cannot. So Swami has told us an easier way, a shortcut. Always go to your heart and see if there is love. You can always also bring your mind into your heart and see if that heart cannot be any violence in the heart, because heart is the place of God Himself. So I think this non-violence can go to so many different levels. Mother Teresa says something so beautiful. She says, if you want to change the world, go and love your family. So everything starts from our own self. Family, yes, of course, but also from our own heart. So if you go to your heart and see that I want to be love now in this moment, I want to be feeling the presence of God, therefore your mind comes to actually becomes surrenders to your heart. So that's an easier way, I think Swami has told us. Sarah.
That's such an amazing example of how through nonviolence we're also practicing, other values as well, being loving, kind. Anybody have anything else?
One thing we can all thought about, Swami also said that is, do unto others what you don't want for yourself. So if you don't want to do for yourself, then you don't want to do the same thing for others. So that's an important thing to go on thinking. Loving yourself is like a higher self, the God. That same God is there. When you say Sai Ram, you say somebody is returning back Sai Ram, the same God is there. The moment we know it's God, do we do anything to Swami? No, we won't. Then the same thing will appear. So that conscience developing is a good thing with the practice. But go on saying, hey, that's why so many tools Swami had given. This is one of the tools.
Sorry, I'm adding on to what Ananda has spoke. Through our actions, we should create non-violent atmosphere. So, for example, the milk that we get at home is coming from a cow whose calf has been denied the milk to feed all of us. And what are we doing? We are bringing them and loads, cartons and cartons of milk, stocking up in the refrigerator, sometimes wasting them because it's out of date, making sweets, eating a little bit of it and throwing the rest in the trash. So our actions are carrying a message that we do not care about the nature or the source of our sustenance. So we have to be vigilant. What are we doing? How can we contribute to a more peaceful, loving society and existence? Other day Shravani was sharing with me, the diamonds that most of the women wear are coming from mines where small children are being sent to extract these precious stones. So what are we telling? What are we advertising here? I don't care about. For my desires, I don't care about the existence of these little souls. So, one person can't change, 10 people can't change, but globally, if this consciousness, understanding, and self-inquiry happens, the consciousness rises. And one day or the other, Swami will use all this global consciousness to make global changes. So that's where, as any devotee of God or any person being on a spiritual path, we have to strive for that inner inquiry. So,
Very valid. Something we must truly inculcate. Thank you, Sandhya, for that. You talk about everything, just that cognizance, that level of cognizance of how our actions affect the world around us. And though I try to finish off as much sweets as I can, I know that the source of it is something that we must always be aware of. But I think you struck upon a very interesting point. I believe Krishna Uncle as well been talking about trying to see whom you're affecting. And ultimately, Swami has time and time again talked about this body being the shrine of God, or being, the temple or the house of God. And it reminds me of a small Chinakatha that I had read that a professor had told me during college. It seems one day there was a shopkeeper whom every day in and day out, was unbelievably worked. It was worked to the brim. He'd wake up in the morning, work with customers and then just go back to sleep. And he didn't have any time to do proper dhyana, or proper meditation or contemplation upon God. So he was trying to think of a good way to contemplate upon God, and he goes to a guru, and the guru says, why don't, you should try to find some time, at least even if it's 10 minutes, find some time to do it. He was thinking, where will I find the 10 minutes? This was back in the olden days, so he was, took a lot of time to walk and do stuff. But then he got a call, and he looked at his phone, and it was a call from nature. As in, he had to unload, as Bhagavan time and time again had said. So then he realized that when he is in the process of unloading himself of his prior meals, he has that opportunity or that window to contemplate. For those of you who didn't get the subtlety of the call of nature, it means he wanted to use the bathroom for the longer duration. So then he, during that time, would decide to sit and talk. He would contemplate upon Rama. He would, go about his avid business. So it seems Hanuman at some point was crossing by, and he happened to see this scene before him, and he was aghast. I mean, think about it, some dude squatting and stuff, and then he's chanting Rama Rama's name that loudly with a lot of joy, So Hanuman obviously had to do something. He felt the Raudra, or that righteous anger within him, and he said something has to be done. So the kids these days refer to WWE SmackDowns, and that is exactly what Hanumanji did to this poor shopkeeper. Beat him up with his fists, beat him up with his legs. I think his tail was also involved in giving him a good whooping. This man, he saw Rama. That was how close it was. That was as close as he was going to get living to see the Lord Rama's darshan. So then he lay there, Rama, and then Hanuman went about his daily business, feeling satisfied, having done what he believed to be right. He goes to Rama's court. This is during Ayodhya time, when Rama was ruling the land with peace and prosperity. And he goes into the land, and apparently he is barred. He's not allowed to enter into Sri Rama's chambers. Why not? He asked, I am Rama's greatest devotee. Then after a lot of debate and argument and such, he was allowed inside. So thus he went inside, and he was aghast and shocked when he saw Rama covered in bruises. And he said, Sri Rama, who did this to you? Again, his father came. Was it the shopkeeper? I'll give him a second round. He was ready. He was ready to go do it. Then this Rama said, no, stop yourself. It was you who did it. And then Hanuman was shocked. Rama, what is great sin? How could I have done such a thing? Then he said, you don't realize that he is also my form. And he wanted to take that small amount of time he got to contemplate upon me. The purity, you are so focused on this gross action that you're not concerning yourself with the purity of his intent. So it has a twofold effect. Number one, Hanuman, it was a lesson for Hanuman to ensure that, he doesn't go around beating everybody up, and thus practicing a little bit about himself in the physical sense, but also for the shopkeeper as well. For he realized that not only must he ensure that his being is well taken care of, but also that he is a shrine of God, and that nature of divinity must be adhered to.
And such a profound message that, for the biggest thing that any of us can do is make an active effort to contemplate upon God and to practice his values in whichever chance we get. And, with that, I feel like this a lot where sometimes I know what is right. My conscience is telling me what is right. But how do we actively listen to our conscience, even if sometimes we don't want to? Or if our desire to do something that we're not supposed to do is becoming stronger? How do we use nonviolence to combat that? Yeah, do you have to answer this question? No, any insight. So my question was, in times when we know what our conscience is suggesting, but we still have a desire to do what is against our conscience, how can we use nonviolence in that instance to bring us back?
Silent. So, Swami keeps saying,
desire just one thing, desire me, God. And so and that is the highest good. So by desiring anything else, we're harming ourselves because we're desiring something lower. So anytime any desire comes that's not for Swami, we're hurting ourselves.
There's also another way to really sit with your desire. Because whenever we want to suppress something, it actually affects us even more. So we can be the observer of that desire and see where exactly wants to go, what it exactly wants to do. So once we sit with it with love and let it run its course inside us, then we can see if it's really good for us or not. And then we can follow it.
And also, when you get the thought, it's the anger, next step is the anger. Just like how to control the anger. We have to, Swami says, when your desire is not fulfilled, so the next step is we all get angry. And everybody knows how Swami gave so many ways to get it up. And the easiest way is to repeat God's name. So immediately when you repeat that, your thought process goes, and then that violence you want to commit, it subsides. And the other techniques, of course, is to leave the place if it's possible. Okay, suppose if two people are having an argument, if the other person leaves, then there is no more argument like that. And then the third one is to calm down, to drink water, and also take a quick, oh, can you hear me? Okay. And take a quick run. You know, those are the other ways to control the anger. But just our purpose is to change the thought process, because most of the murders committed are in that fit of anger. So most of the violence is just because that one thought we did not change. So the best way for us is, since we all chant Swami's name, just to chant Sai Ram and then or hum a bhajan, then immediately the whole atmosphere changes. And here I just want to share, one time in Bangalore, Swami was with the students. And every day in the morning, the Swami says, "Any samachara," that means what news, and then as if he doesn't know. But then the students take that opportunity and they said in the newspaper, Swami, there is some violence with the Naxalites. That means some gangsters doing that in India. This was 30 years ago. And then Swami looked at all the students. Till that time, they were having good time satsang. And all of a sudden, Swami looked at them and says, "You're all Naxalites. You're all," they all got a shock. And then there was a senior devotee who had some courage, because when Swami talks, the students, they don't open up their mouth. So they were all dumbfounded. And then the senior devotee said, "Swami, they're so good, they do this, they do that, they spend all the time here with the," then no, they're sitting and doing, but what about the thoughts? So they are not controlling the thoughts. At the thought level, we have to start the non-violence. So that's as we are discussing, that's where it starts. And once it starts, and then Swami said, "So no, you're good," but there is always chance for more improvement. So that's what it is. And like Sandhya was telling, if you take it in a broader prospect, the nature, the harm we are doing to the nature by not, using these plastics and all the stuff, everybody will know that is the worst violence we are committing. All of us are responsible for that, the way that we are creating the problems on the earth. So and we can go more deeper to the non-violence.
Great. Have fun.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to how we can overcome our kind of like desire to maybe do something that we're not supposed to do. And I was reminded of the law of karma in this instance. So, which is like the law of karma is like the principle of cause and effect. So actions have consequences, and harmful actions disrupt our spiritual growth and they create negative karmic energy. So in that sense, practicing nonviolence is seen as a way to accumulate positive karma and progress on the spiritual path. So I like to think of it as, if I'm wanting to do something I'm not supposed to do, there's two very strong reasons as to why I shouldn't do it. One, it'll hinder me from making spiritual progress, and it'll hinder my spiritual growth. And second, it'll probably lead to me accumulating negative karma, which is definitely not desirable at all.
I think another tool along the same lines is after to kind of imbue yourself with the idea that God is in you and God is in the other person. So whether it's violence toward others or violence toward yourself, so in the sense of not doing right by yourself even if you know better, I think that something like that, you know, I am God, I'm not different from God, I'm the indivisible, that whole kind of passage can hopefully align yourself with this idea that you are divine. Because otherwise it can be hard to identify yourself with the divine if you feel the physical and the mental the whole time. But hopefully the more that we can identify with the fact that we are something bigger than what we see and what we experience, the more you would want to act along those lines and not, you know, hurt yourself or others, I would think.
What wonderful, wonderful insights from each and every one of you. As we progress throughout the sojourn that is life, oftentimes it is an accumulation of good things, good ideas that allows us to step forward towards the ultimate goal. And I think that today, among many days that we've been involved in these processes, we have taken those steps forward. Thank you, and Jai Sai Ram.